If you're going to open carry, I highly suggest you getting a level 3 holster so someone doesn't take your gun. Don't do the whole Uncle Mike's, you know, kind of duct tape to your pants as you go to the gas station, because we've all seen the videos of that getting stolen. Get a good level 3 if you're going to wear openly, which I don't suggest. I don't like being seen. I don't like being targeted. I hate people staring at me or noticing me. I would rather just kind of blend in on my day. I don't want to be a target or a focus people looking at. It's just not me.
All right, welcome back, guys. Today we are going to be doing a video on this holster right here. But I want to talk about my experience with this holster specifically. I know there's a lot of people who have already done reviews on this. I think like Milspec Mojo and a few other people that I've seen did reviews on this, and they were, you know, skeptical at first because, you know, it kind of looks, I don't want to say Blackhawkish, but it looks Blackhawkish. And if you've had Blackhawk holsters, you know what I mean. Like, it's kind of that thicker material that feels, I don't know, a little bit cheaper. And by cheap, I don't mean like it's going to break, but by like it has to be, you know, a thicker material to be more rigid kind of thing. As I've used this more, I like it, you know, more and more and more. So that kind of reservation has gone away. There's still a lot of screws, and you'll see kind of all the different screws that are in place to kind of hold everything together. So it's not like one, you know, form, fit, mold. It's a bunch of pieces that are basically attached together. You could look at that as a positive and negative, but I have yet to see a screw come loose, and everything that I've done to it has, you know, stayed in place. It has locking, it has thread locker on all the screws. From what I can tell, I haven't taken apart all the screws, obviously, but the ones that I could see, they did have thread locker on them, so that's good. But I've been using this holster now for, gosh, at least 4 months, maybe 5 months. It could be half a year at this point. I don't know. I've lost track of time, honestly. But I've been using this at my job because I wanted a holster that would work, you know, with a duty light. So I switched to this holster from using, I've used a couple different ones. I've used the Blackhawk, the Epic or Epoch, EPOCH, and I've used that for a while, but it's not a red dot sight. It's not, you know, red dot compatible. I've also used the Serpa holsters from Blackhawk, which, you know, insert cringe, whatever here. They work fine if you train with them enough, but I do understand people that say, you know, if you use them, you're kind of just adding a potential, you know, safety hazard that doesn't need to exist. So, and I'm kind of in that category. I'm like, well, it's not a big deal if you train with it a lot, but for especially for newer shooters or people who are new to using that holster, it does just beg to have an ND. So, you know, that aside. So anyways, I've been using this for a while now, and I'm a big fan of it so far. I haven't cleaned this thing at all, so it's quite disgusting on the inside. It fits a multitude of lights and guns. I don't know if it's specifically designed to fit multiple guns. The version I ordered was for a Glock 17 with a TLR1HL, which I have right here, or a Surefire. This is the turbo version, the X300 Turbo. It'll fit a few other lights. I don't remember off the top of my head. You'll have to look it up, or I'll annotate it below. Maybe I'll insert a picture. But it'll fit a multitude of lights because it's not just, you know, one. It's not just one size fits one light and one gun combination. It will, you know, work with multiple gun types. Even some it's not specifically supposed to. And I'll kind of go over that here in a little bit. But I wanted a holster that was red dot compatible as well as weapon mounted light compatible. And there's only a couple options that are really out there. And Blackhawk just came out with one, but my buddy bought one, and it has like the release mechanism on it is different. So on the Blackhawk, it's, if you're familiar with the Serpas or the level 3 Serpas, they had like a little lever in here that you actually push in sideways, and it released the hood, and then, you know, you have the Serpa thing that would release down here. Well, their newer one that's a red dot compatible basically just has that little push-in lever, and then as you push it in, that activates another lever on the inside of that lever. So there's basically two buttons in one, if that makes sense. So it's, in my opinion, not actually level 3. So in my opinion, the new Blackhawk one that's, you know, red dot compatible isn't actually level 3 because it just essentially takes one button to release both mechanisms. There is technically, yes, mechanically two different buttons on it, but it's kind of a cop-out in my mind. So I didn't like that one because it's fairly easy for someone to take your gun out of your holster if they're even somewhat familiar with how, you know, the level 3 holsters work. My favorite one is probably the Safariland, just because it has, you know, you have to press the hood forward, and then you have, you know, the little QLS or whatever they call it, the quick release that you can, you know, thumb back, and then, you know, it comes out. So it's two independent motions, and, you know, if you want to, you know, on the Safariland, you can just kind of shove the hood forward, and then still have, you know, 1 level retention if you want to. And this one's kind of similar to that, except they put all the mechanisms basically in one place, so it has one fluid motion to release them. And hopefully you can see this on here. Sorry, I'm trying to wrangle this belt on camera. I'm going to take it off this here in a second. Let's just do this. All right, so on here, as you can see, there is a button that you push down, and it stays down, and that releases the hood forward. You don't want to just barely push it, because it'll just kind of do that. You can shove it forward if you want to. You want to give it a good aggressive push down, and then you swipe back on this right here, and that releases, if you can see the mechanism moving in there, that releases hopefully you can see there's a little hook on the inside down in there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it'll move, and that releases it off the ejection port. So it locks in the ejection port instead of the light, which I appreciate. And then obviously the hood, you know, the back strap here, just, you know, keep the gun from coming out completely. So in practice, what that looks like is this. So you will push down, swipe back, and then it comes up. Hopefully my arm's not blocking it too much, but it is, you know, one where you can push that down and it still has retention. It's not going anywhere because it's locked in the rejection port. Or rejection. It's locked on the rejection port. It's locked on the ejection port. And then as you swipe back, it comes out. It does come with different size, you know, buttons where you can, you know, make this a little bit longer if you've got short, you know, stubby thumbs, or if you have really long thumbs, you know, you might like this one. I found the one that just comes on it fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. I wouldn't mind switching to a longer one, but I haven't really, you know, committed to putting it on there yet because I'm lazy. But at the moment, I don't feel like it's super necessary. But, you know, just know it does come with different options. It will work with anything, obviously, that does not have a red dot, which is at my job right now. I don't have a red dot on my gun because the department doesn't issue them, but I wanted this holster so I can use this for my own personal stuff as well as my job. It will fit, like I said, multiple different lights. I will say that if you notice here, there's a little bit of wiggle from side to side. And this is a Gen 3 Glock 17. So there is a little bit of wiggle from side to side. There is an adjustment right here, if you can see that on there. I actually have it adjusted most of the way for retention. Well, if I would move this in the camera. So there is, you know, a little lever right here where you can adjust a little screw that, if I can remember where that's at. Yeah, it's right down here. So there's a little lever right there, or a little screw. You screw in on that, and then that adjusts the retention, which just basically puts pressure on the gun. And it works. It does add more retention, but in my mind, but it doesn't really get rid of that slop. It just kind of gets rid of the tension as you're, like, where your light is. But up here is always going to rattle a little bit. Every holster is like that, especially ones that use multiple different guns. Now, if I take this off, and again, because it works with different lights, it's kind of nice for, you know, departments that just want to buy like one thing and that's it. So if I put this Surefire X300 Turbo on there, shove it in there, it'll fit fine. There is more wiggle with the Surefire, so just know that. The dimensions on a TLR1 on the Streamlight is fatter, so that's why if they make it fit this, it's going to be more loose, you know, with the Surefire.
I'll switch guns. This also fits a Glock 19 with a TLR 7A. I'll show you that here in a second. Once I run out of bullets with the... I just want to kind of show you different guns. See that snag? So that is one problem you'll run into. Also, when reholstering, it's easier to aim with the flashlight than with the slide. So whenever you go in, get your flashlight in, then rotate it forward or rock it forward. If you try to get the barrel, you're going to probably hang up just like this and snag. Now it's worse because of these, again, slide serrations. There's so much plastic. It's worse with the slide serrations. And again, that's why it's hanging up. I don't really love slide. I wish Brownells made it without the front slide serrations. I'm not a, you know, tactical cool press check guy. I just rack it. That's just my personal opinion. Or my personal preference. All right, now to show you, it will fit. There's a Glock 17 mag in here, but this is a Glock 19 Gen 5 MOS. It has a Holosun EPS, if you see on there. And I mean, this red dot is basically the same size as a non-enclosed one, but as you can see, it still fits in here, and it's a little bit loose. Now granted, this holster is not designed for the Glock 19, so whenever I buy another one, I might get one that's Glock 19 specific instead of Glock 17, because whenever I bought one, it was for the Glock 22 because I was using it for work. But just to kind of show you, they're all basically the same. I'm assuming they might have some differences in the models, but they may not. Whenever I order one, I'll find out, I guess. But this holster works just fine with the Glock 17, with the TLR7 on here as well. And the Glock is, as you can tell, a little bit more wiggly. This is about how much my Glock 22 wiggles. It's not a lot, but I mean, you know, it's enough. Does that matter? No. There's a little bit of wiggle up and down, as you can see. I don't know if you can see that or not. Again, it's not made for this. Now, if I put a larger light on here, it will take out some of the slop. So part of it's the light. Again, this holster is designed for a TLR 1HL or a Surefire X300. They list the models of what it's supposed to fit with. So it's not designed to fit with this, but it's cool that it basically will work with just about any light that's small enough to fit in the hole. So is it secure enough for me to feel comfortable? Yeah. I would have no problem using the same holster with this gun at work, or, you know, just carry it around or whatever. So I don't mind. That's why I think you could still just buy one holster, kind of use it for everything if you wanted to save money. So do a little bit of shooting with this one. This one does not snag nearly as much. One thing I will tell you, if you don't press down all the way on this thumb, you see it did that time. Let me see if I can kind of just barely push it. So you see right there, I didn't shove down on it hard. And even if I swipe back on here, it cleared, but just barely. This hood is not all the way forward. Now it's all the way forward. It's colder out here. It's like 40 degrees. So make sure to really aggressively shove down on it to get it out of the way. Don't do the little, you don't try to pull out, because as you can see, it snags on the optic. Now, if you don't have an optic, it's not going to, but I bought this one so I could use it if I ever got an optic on my work gun, but also so I can use it with all my other stuff. So again, let's do a little bit of shooting. That was bad. A little snag. You can tell I haven't shot pistols with dots in a while. I should shoot more, but I need to turn this thing up too. Not quite bright enough. There we go. Forgot I turned it down. I mean, I can still use it. Now you saw that little hang up. That's because I didn't press down all the way and I didn't swipe back all the way. So if you only just barely swipe it with your thumb, it catches. You have to release all the way. So really be aggressive with your it's a full thumb wipe, not just a barely push. Some holsters I've used, you know, just kind of have a little bit. If you're used to the Blackhawk Epoch or Epic, however you pronounce it, you really have to like mash down that sucker before you can draw. It's kind of the same thing with this. It's not nearly as bad. This one's a lot easier to draw from, in my opinion. But every now and then, if you don't swipe back aggressively, it will hang up. Training issue. If you can't figure out a holster, you're not using it enough. If you have problems with the holster, you're not using it enough. Go for it. I noticed I have that problem with PMags. Granted, I have that problem with most Gen 5s. The slide lock gets in the way of my thumb. Press is just... My left hand wasn't gripping as good as it should have been. So as you can see, drawing with this belt from here, and these, it's a PMag and a ETS. I hate both of these, but I didn't know I hated them until after I bought them. So I have a bunch of them because they were cheap. Now, granted, for training, they're fine.
Now, this holster is a bit pricey. It's around $150 if I remember right, kind of after everything's said and done. Now, it'll be cheaper, you know, I do that in air quotes, until you start adding all the stuff. You know, you can get it without the red dot sight hood. You can get it, you know, in a level 2 instead. You can get like their detective model. But the more features, you know, red dot sight hood and all that kind of stuff, level 3, it just adds the cost. One thing I wish I did that I did not do is I wish I bought their their version of like the Safariland QLS. They have like their own quick release method. My buddy that works with me bought one. He bought the quick detach version, and for like another $15 or whatever it is, like just buy it. That way, if you get another one, you don't have to buy the entire holster. You can just buy another mount for like, $40, and then you can use the same holster for either one, because again, this will fit multiple guns depending, on what gun it is. So I'll show you kind of, what it looks like shooting with this thing at the range. I decided I'm not going to take this off my belt because I just don't want to. But again, from a draw standpoint, it's very smooth. You're not taking this gun out here. There is a little bit more slop than I would like to see. Like, it does come up and back just a little bit. Obviously, as you can tell. Does that matter? No, because even with that removed, it's still locked on the ejection port. And again, if you want to watch like a durability test of this thing, Mil-Spec Mojo has a really good review from like 2 years ago, maybe, whenever this holster first came out. I'm a little late to the game, but it is what it is. I was worried about all the little mechanisms in here and all the little screws maybe coming loose. I haven't had a single screw come loose, at least not that I've seen. So it is what it is. If you're worried about that, that is a thing. It is kind of bulky, but that's only because it's for a red dot sight and a light. Every other holster on the market is going to be kind of the same thing. It is a little fat, if you can see right here. It's a little chunky. That's just because of the mechanism that they have. That's why it sticks out right here, because obviously, the slide is basically right here. All this is where the internal lock mechanism stands in. So if you get it without the red dot sight hood, this is still going to exist. So just know that. It kind of looks weird. I think the red dot sight version actually looks better. And this hood is actually made for enclosed emitter red dot sights. That's why it's a little bit bulkier. I don't know if they still sell the smaller one or not. Whenever I bought this, it was a choice where you could pick the regular one or the one that would fit enclosed. And I'm like, well, duh, get the enclosed one. One thing that I kind of don't like about it, though, but it makes sense, is it has a larger hole here for suppressor height sights. I'll show you in a second. My other guns, as long as you use a fairly low red dot on top of your gun, you're just going to have a gap here because you don't need those. But if you're using suppressor height sights, there is a gap there for that. So that's nice, and it makes sense. So let's swap out guns here. So this is my carry gun, so I'm clearing it. Yeah, I know. Oh, it's so unsafe. Well, you're behind the camera, so you're safer than me. All right, so this is my Glock 19. This is a Gen 5 Glock 19. It's got a TLR 7A on it. Don't buy the regular 7. This light switch is way better than the little weird push button thing that comes on there. And it also has a HoloSun EPS on a CHWPS, I think is the company that makes the mounting plate. So as you can tell, it sits fairly low. These are just standard sights. And you can still technically use the iron sights, just barely. They're True Glow sights, if I remember correctly. But this holster is not made, for this gun. But look at that. Fits in there just fine. It has a little bit more wiggle because obviously the gun's shorter, so there's more room for it to go down. So it's really actually stopping on the red dot sight. So the red dot sight, the front of it, is actually resting right here. So that's what's preventing it from going down, because the flashlight doesn't. Now, I'm not going to take this off, but if I were to take this, light off right here and put a longer light on there, it would not move as much. But I like the fact that I can use my carry gun if I wanted to, or I could use, a full-size gun right here as well. Now, one thing I forgot to bring out here was my RMR slide for my 17, but you get the idea. It'll fit pretty much any red dot sight that I've tried. I don't own any of the larger mailboxes. This is actually a very small enclosed red dot compared to what's on the market, but it should fit, like your Aimpoint Acros and all those other, I believe it's the Acro. Anyways, all the giant mailboxes that everyone sees, including the new Trigicon offering that they have that's like an enclosed emitter, uses those weird proprietary screws. Should fit all those things. I'm sure there's something that exists out there that it won't, but it fits everything I have. One thing I will say, this holster, if you use a Gen 5 Glock that has a front slide serrations, it's not a problem, because the front slide serrations on Glock are a little bit smooth. They're not super, aggressive. They're aggressive enough where you can grab them. The Brownells slide that I have, this an RMR cut, it's like the Zev cut. It has really, really aggressive front slide serrations, and it for a while is actually shaving off the interior plastic. like from the inside of here, and I don't appreciate that. So I don't like using this with the Brownells. So honestly, in my opinion, again, just my opinion, sorry, I keep bumping the stand here. If you have a gun that just has like the Brownell slide, I probably wouldn't get this holster, just because I don't know how long it'll take, for it to file off the material, but eventually it's just going to get looser and looser and looser. And this holster was tighter initially whenever I first got it. As you can see, it's actually fairly tight with the Gen 5s. Gen 5s are a little bit, different dimensionally. But it was like basically this snug initially with all my guns. And then as I started using the Brownell slide, it's a Glock 17, that was slowly shaving away material on the inside, and then it just got a little bit looser and a little bit looser. So it's not really shaving off anything anymore, but I mean, as you draw, you're going to still scrape off material. So that's something I don't like. That's not necessarily a problem with this holster. That's just a problem with that slide. So if you have a gun that has front slide serration, just know if they're super aggressive, you may run into issues with this. That might be an issue with other holsters too. I don't know, but that's just something I read. All right, one thing I'll also notice is it's like a clamp-on style. So if you're familiar with Safariland, they make belt loops that kind of just glide, over it, and the belt loops basically go through it. This one uses more, I would say, a traditional kind of clamp-on style, kind of like Blackhawk uses. So you just, unbolt these two screws, and then this goes over the top of the belt, and then you tighten the screws down, it clamps onto the belt. I like this method better because, unlike a Safariland, it's not going to glide either way. Now, if you have Velcro like this, a Velcro belt, that's going to hold it in place and negates that point. But if you don't have a Velcro belt, the Velcro's to the inner belt, this is a good option because, again, it prevents your gun or your holster from sliding around. So you always have a consistent draw. It does have an adjustability for different belt heights, so that's kind of cool. I would highly suggest adding Velcro to this right here if you do have a Velcro belt, because if you don't, this space right here is not big enough for your inner belt to get sucked in there to actually attach to anything. So I added Velcro here, and I haven't had it move whatsoever. So this is highly recommended. Add some mil Velcro to here. How it attaches right here is standard. It uses 3 screws, kind of similar to Blackhawk if you've used those. Their quick detach obviously is a better choice in my opinion, but since I already bought this, I'll probably just buy another holster down the road. But the fact that this can be used, again, with, basically all of my guns, because I only own 9mm and, my department issues a 40, so I have that, but since they're all the same size, all of these are basically interchangeable. And I really like the fact that, you can use this with or without a red dot sight gun, and you can technically as well. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but apologies, I hit the light again. It will work without a light, as you can see on here. Now you get more movement, so you can it's more wiggly. It's not substantially, it's probably about the distance or the same difference as going from a TLR 1HL to the Surefire, and then one step further is basically the looseness. It works. It's not ideal. So I mean, if you're going from, well, I need a new holster, and then eventually down the road I plan on getting a light, and I also want a red dot, but you don't have the money for those options yet. You just have the gun and you want to start with the holster. Then yeah, I mean, this would be a good starting point, because it does, again, lock on the ejection port, not the light, so that's fine. But if you don't have a weapon mounted light, getting it back in there, reholstering, is kind of obnoxious, because whenever you're reholstering, the way I look at it is you're actually aiming with the gun. So instead of aiming, with the muzzle in here, which is going to cause you to kind of flop it around and eventually you'll get it in there. But if you aim with the bezel of the flashlight in there first, it just glides in perfectly every time. So that's a little bit different than a holster that, it doesn't have a weapons light, but that's just something, as soon as I'm like, oh, I just aim with the light, and it goes in easy every single time. If you have problems holstering and unholstering this gun, it's 100% a training issue. Just practice. You'll be fine. One thing I will say though is whenever you're drawing, press down. Make sure you're pressing down all the way with your thumb. Hopefully this is, again, showing up on video. Sorry, I'm at an awkward angle. And then swipe back all the way as you release. So it's very fast, but make sure you're not just like swiping and then trying to draw after the swipe. It's literally one motion. So that's just, again, a training practice issue, and you'll get good with it. As far as durability wise, again, I haven't had any problems with this. I really, really like this holster. Hopefully you appreciate this video. This is going to be kind of a shorter review, hopefully. I've been using this for a while, and there's not really a whole lot to say about this holster other than the fact of it's a good holster if you're looking for something that, exchangeable, swappable, as long as you buy the quick detach system, and you can still use it with multiple guns. I haven't used a Safariland, which would be the, I guess the other option out there, the competitive choice. Well, I won't say competitive. Most people use Safarilands, but they are very expensive. They're like $300 for a holster. This is about half the price. So I prefer buying this, and I don't have any issues with it. It looks, maybe a little ugly, but I got used to it. But anyways, hopefully you appreciate this, and I hope you all have a good one.